I know last year felt like it went really fast because you had kind of the shortened off season. You're getting so many things in place. Does it feel any slower this year in the lead up to the start of the season?
Yeah, it does in relation to last year, but outside of that, it doesn't feel any different because there's so many things you're trying to do to prepare for a season. And some days it's interesting that when they moved the preseason back to the, I think it's like, 42 days or something like that before the season starts. Years ago, you went, man, the preseason's long. And there's certain days you go, man, we got 5 weeks left or something. And then there's certain days you look up and go, oh, my gosh, we don't have enough time because we got to get better at these 3 or 4 things that are, incredibly important to our foundation, our success, and we haven't gotten to these details. But relative to last year, it's completely different.
You lost 2 of the best shot blockers in the sport, and Abdul and Hayden. How do you plan to compensate, or is it a matter of doing it a little differently in terms of rim protection and paint defense? Because you were one of the best 2-point defenses in the country last year.
Yeah, it's a lot different. Certainly, there's adjustments you're making to your strategy defensively to compensate for that. I will say we lost that shot blocking, rim protection at that position, but we did gain a ton of length and athleticism on the perimeter. So you sacrifice kind of one for the other, but how you utilize that is different than how we utilized Hayden and Abdul last year. I think we have a really good plan of what we're doing defensively. It's not so new, like a lot of the foundational things from last year for those returning guys, they're able to carry over, but some of those adjustments are a little bit different. And one thing I'm trying to get our returning guys and our older guys to understand is, hey, we could maybe get away with that play last year on the ball, or that kind of a help. We didn't want it like that, but we got away with it because Abdul's behind you or Hayden's behind you. That's not the case now. Our strengths are in other areas. So, yeah, there's certainly adjustment. We've been thinking about that all offseason since the roster was complete. And it's going to be, for the returning guys, it'll be a little bit of an adjustment early, but I think the things we're doing will help us.
Is that something where, like, taking charges, like where you focus maybe on other ways to handle guys driving to the rim?
Well, when you don't have shot blocking, up top, right? Like Hayden and Abdul gave you not just the ability to block shots, but alter shots or alter people from even driving to the basket because of their presence. Now you have to be better positionally on the ground. And so certainly around the basket, your ability to rotate over and take a charge, Chad, your ability to be in that help position earlier, to be a little more active earlier, those things at the rim around the basket become so much more important. And then obviously when the ball does get there, your positioning, even if it's not a charge, but to make shots go over you without committing undisciplined fouls. Those are things that we're emphasizing like crazy. And it's, trying to convince these guys that were here that, yeah, I understand you got away with not doing some of these things to the standard that we want last year. That will not be the case this year because you said how much the roster's changed.
So Kalu's one of those new guys who kind of has to fill that void in the post. What have you seen from him so far? Do you view him as a 4 or 5? Does it matter?
Yeah, positions in college basketball. We all want to talk about positions in our sport the way we talked about them, when I was born in the 80s, and I don't know when the heck you were born, but I was born in the 80s, and you had Kareem and Akeem Olajuwon and Shaq in the 90s, and those are centers, right? Look in the NBA now. You could turn on an NBA game, and it'd be hard to tell you who any position is. It's multi-positional players. And so that's how the college game has really evolved to that too. And that's how this team, obviously Abdul and Hayden are true centers. So you could say that last year we were maybe more traditional. This team's more modern, and we're very positionless. So, again, you can't compare Kalu to Hayden or Abdul because they're very different players. So even if the way that you guys want to, evaluate our team says, well, Kalu's in at the same position that Abdul was in last year, it's not the same. And so how we utilize that is totally different, right? Kalu is more of a true forward. He's got perimeter skills. He can really handle the ball. He can really pass. He's got great athleticism. I'm trying to get him to figure out how to unlock that athleticism with how he plays, to get his motor running, to do some little things to take advantage of that combination of width, strength, power, quickness, feel. And but we're going to use him completely different than we used Hayden and Abdul, because even though that might be the biggest guy on the floor, it's not the same position per se.
You haven't done exhibition games in either of the first 2 years, instead opting for the super secret scrimmages that nobody's allowed to talk about. Is that just a philosophy thing, or has that been –
I still don't understand what I can or can't say, so I just never say anything. So, I mean, at some point the NCAA can provide some clarity as the preseason, but I just don't say anything about it. I'd prefer – if you have a chance to play against Division I teams in a closed-door setting, I've found in my, 10, 11 years, you get so much more out of those days than you do out of an exhibition against a team from a different conference. A different level. And I've really enjoyed over the years doing those super secret closed-door scrimmages with friends, where you do more than just 2 20-minute halves. You do 3 20-minute halves, or you do 10-minute segments, you do zone segments, you do situations, and I really enjoy that. And so that's something I'm always trying to do when we do have the opportunity to do those. So it's try to get more out of that because of the competition, and because of hopefully you're working with somebody to do some different type of things than you could get out of any game.
Hypothetically speaking, do you feel better where you're at today than maybe where you were at Sunday morning?
No, I think it's just about, and I know you're trying to have a little fun, and I'm all about fun, but I think it's just about getting better today. Honestly, I'm obsessed with it, and when you do play against somebody else, you learn things. Things that you can't see in practice against yourself. And so it's exciting to kind of learn some things and then have the opportunity to go and address them on the practice court, which is why I'd like to do the super secret closed-door scrimmage. I'd like to do one of them really early so we can just try different combinations, play everybody, and then address some things over a couple weeks of practice that we maybe weren't able to figure out playing against each other.
So you talked about defensively how it looks different without Abdul and Hayden. What about offensively? You talked about using Kalu differently. Does that mean it's more open? How does it maybe look different compared to last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think in our transition offense, it's very different. We're playing 4 true perimeter players in most lineups, so we're really trying to keep the middle of the floor open, and then we're letting that forward that's in the game, maybe look to run for some dunks or layups, but also trail the play, and you just see so much more space in the middle of the floor. And I think, you try to have some very organized structure in how you're coming down the floor, but then you try to also allow different players to play to their strengths. So Kalu is, again, he's a really good ball handler. He's a really good passer. So we might let him push the ball and push the break a little bit. We might try to play through him on reversal in different ways than we played through the guys that were on the floor in that type of position last year. But then with other guys, there may be different emphasis, right? So you have an organized structure for everybody, and then you try to find the strengths of each player and allow them to play to them. And, again, Kalu's really unique because of his ability to handle the ball and pass the ball.
With you guys not being as tall, not having Abdul and Koval, you guys have more length, though, like on the wing. Does it make you feel happy that you could be more versatile on offense and defense, even though you don't really have the pure shot blockers like last year?
Yeah, there's like you said, you miss some of that. Like it was, we've said it a bunch in this press conference. I mean, last year, I'd have loved to play defense with Abdul behind me because you get beat. And shoot, a lot of times you get beat and the guy that beats you doesn't want to keep going because he looks down there and says, I ain't messing with him. This year it's not the same, but the things that are positive are you got lineups where 4 guys on the floor are over 6'5". Your wingspans are different. You can cover more ground. So there's some neat things you can do there. I think you can deny more passes. I think you can rotate and cover more ground in rotation. You can double team a little bit more. I think you can have more success pressing and doing some of the pressing stuff that we've done in years past. So, I think you get positives and negatives, right? It's not all bad. It's not all good. I think you just got to kind of learn how to utilize the gifts that you do have. I do think we're trending towards more positional size across the board, even though we lost some positional size in the interior.
We're supposed to talk to Rob today. He always kind of has that reputation as versatile defensive guard, kind of a steady presence. What have you seen from him at point guard so far?
Just that. He's a really, really gifted defensive player. I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody that's covered him doesn't know. He's an elite defensive player and has proven it over a career in college basketball at a high level. He's shown that here. I think there's obviously some adjustment to learning our defensive principles that are different than what he's been asked to do, but he's made that adjustment nicely, and I think he'll continue to. He's really, really steady with the ball. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes good decisions. I've been really surprised at his ability to get his shoulders downhill by his guy and make a good decision, get into the paint. And he's got a history of making big shots in his career. You know, you look at, he's hit a bunch of game winners. He's had 20-point games. And I think he'll be a more consistent shooter, because he's worked on his game this offseason. And I do think they'll have some prolific offensive games. But he's not a guy, and I value this in him, especially at the lead guard position. He's not a guy that's coming down, hunting his own offense. He's coming down and he's running the team and playing the right way. And I think there's a lot of value in that.
You talk about positionless basketball, especially on the wing. You've got a large number of guys. What's the challenge for you to figure that rotation of who can play with who, who's best with who, and getting, there's 5-6 guys that 2 to 3 can do a lot?
It goes to the last question, right? I mean, having all that versatility and length, as a coach, it's fun. I mean, it was a fun off season for me, calling buddies and talking to different people in basketball, because it's a uniquely built roster relative to the teams that I've coached. So that's fun, right? You get to kind of dive in and figure out how we can take advantage of this in different ways than maybe we've played before. So that part's been enjoyable, and I think we found some really cool ways, whether it's new half-court actions or whether it's like some adjustments to how you're coming down the floor, adjustments to some of your breakdown offense, or adjustments to some of your defensive stuff, to take advantage of it. And I think we've explored that in every way because of the roster's changed. And I think you make those adjustments, there are pivots, without sacrificing like your foundational core values. We're going to run every possession, right? Like we did that last year, we're going to do that this year. Now, as we get out and run, maybe there's a little bit different emphasis on what we're doing, but we're going to really value the backboards every possession, like how we defensive rebound, how we pursue the offensive glass. Like we're going to really value being ready to play, being in great position early, playing Cincinnati-style basketball, tough, gritty, edgy, getting our hands on balls. Like that stuff doesn't change. We're going to value trying to work for a great shot. Like that stuff doesn't change, but maybe the nature of how you're doing it, you adjust a little bit because the personnel changes. And certainly we've done some of that this offseason.
2 more questions.
Could you maybe talk about Odie's development this offseason or what he's been focusing on specifically?
Yeah, Odie's one of the greatest things about Odie is what you're going to get when you walk into the gym every day. You're going to get a great approach, a great work ethic, right? A great playing with a great motor. He's really spent a lot of time individually working on his skill set, and he's worked a lot on his jump shot. I hope that the first way that we see that is on the free throw line. We had a lot of trouble last year getting to the free throw line. I hope that's not the case. I don't believe that'll be the case this year from what I've seen so far. But Odie's one of those guys last year that actually did get there quite often. He mixes it up. He gets to the offensive board. He gets fouled. He's got a live body. But he shot a really poor free throw percentage. So I think a lot of the work on his shot, immediately, hopefully, we see it a benefit to his free throw percentage and scoring points on the free throw line. His post defense and his interior defense was something people attacked last year. I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody in this room doesn't know. Certainly the people that were playing against us knew it. I think he's worked hard on his body and worked hard on his technique to make sure that's not the case this year. His ability to guard multiple positions, and you guys mentioned our versatility. We're going to be able to switch some things, which means that Odie now may get matched up to a guard. I think that needed to really improve, and from what I've seen, it's really improved. I think he can guard multiple positions. Certainly he's always been athletic enough to do that, but now hopefully he's got some of the technique to do it as well. So I think he's improved a lot. I've liked the kind of preseason he's had so far.
You had the 92 Final Four team here a little over a week ago.
And 93 Elite 8 team as well was with him.
93, okay, yeah.
So 30 years for both of them. Yeah.
You've embraced the past, the history of this program. Those players have embraced you. Obviously, Coach Huggins. What has that meant to you? One, what has that meant to you as you're trying to build this program? And also, are there any conversations that you had during that weekend from players or even Coach Huggins that stand out to you as sort of as you're kind of in that process of building this?
No, I mean, I think I've tried to talk about this since the day that I got here. This was a destination for me. This was a dream to coach at a place like this. And one of the biggest reasons is because this is one of the greatest programs in the history of our sport. You know, certainly there's a lot of other reasons. I felt there was alignment and some other things in terms of what I believe and how I believe the game should be played and approached. But, you know, the tradition and the things that have happened before we arrived here, you know, that's why we're here. I mean, that's why Cincinnati basketball is Cincinnati basketball. And so we're going to celebrate that. Like, we're going to embrace it. We're going to celebrate it. And those guys have earned that. Like, that's the way it's supposed to be. So there hasn't been a lot of conversation. I think they're very grateful and thankful, you know, that we're doing things, you know, like reunions, and we're behind that. But my response to them has always kind of been the same: is that's what it's supposed to be. You earned that. You know, we're just here. And I think it's really neat for us as coaches and for our current players to be around it and to understand that when they put the jersey on, they represent a lot more than just this current team. They represent people that made this program and made this university and made this place the great place it is today by what they accomplished, right? So it's great to have them around because it allows our guys to tangibly see that this really cool place that we work and that we go to school every day is cool because of what was done before us. And so that's the selfish part, having them around. Like, it's selfish because it's good for us and that type of thing. I was so honored when I got the job of how gracious, you know, Coach Cronin and Coach Huggins have both been to me. When I think of Cincinnati basketball, you know, I know now, you know, I'm thinking of Oscar Robertson and I'm thinking of those teams in the 60s, right? But when I grew up, and I was born in 83, not to date some of you guys, but I was born in 83. I'm thinking of Bob Huggins and Nick Van Exel and Corey Blunt and DeMar Johnson and Kenyon Martin. And then as I get into coaching and I'm playing, I'm thinking of all those really tough teams that Coach Cronin had. Like, that's what I know. And so to have those guys kind of embrace me and support me, that's meant a lot personally. And we need their support because, again, we stand on their shoulders in so many ways. So that was great. And we'll hopefully that won't be a one-off. We'll try to do as many things as we can just to celebrate what's done before us and then build upon what's done before us with our work every day.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Players are next.
What's that?
That's a sponsorship. That's a sponsorship? Oh.
Questions for David?
How different has this offseason felt for you? Does it seem like there's been a lot more continuity, stability?
Yeah, it's for sure different. Like I said, my first year playing for a coach for 2 years in a row, so being able to just know the staff that's in place, knowing the systems and concepts on the court and off the court that needs to be done. It's a lot smoother transition for me and allowed me not to worry about the little things, but just worry about my development. How can I be good, not only individually, but for the collective unit as a team.
Coach talked about whether it's going against yourselves in practice or some of these scrimmages that you kind of start to notice things that maybe you wouldn't have seen before. Is there anything that stood out to you maybe over the past week or so of like, all right, once we started playing live a little bit more, this stood out that I wasn't thinking about prior?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Well, first, from a positive note, we have a lot of talent in the gym, and we have a lot of unselfish guys that wants to win. And that's a recipe for success. But we also have a lot to work on that I've noticed over the past week. And that's the concepts that the coaches teach us. But the good thing about it is we have all the tools, the length, the athleticism to get it done. And I think that's the main part. Now we got to put it together and trust the coaching staff.
Through your career, you've played on the ball, you've played off the ball. Do you have a preference, one? And two, do you think that's something that maybe this year you can kind of seamlessly go back and forth through both?
Yeah, I believe this year I'll be playing more of both in a combo role. And that's what I like to be, especially with today's game. I don't feel like traditional basketball has kind of left. And I'm at my best when I can play some on ball and off the ball and play some different roles.
You said year two kind of gives you an opportunity to focus in on your development. What does that look like? What do you want to make sure you get better at this season?
First, being able to do more with less. Like I said, we got a lot of talent in there. So that maybe means not dribbling as much for my game, but also being a better catch and shooter because we got guys that can make plays and allowing me to be aggressive within the confines of the team. And that's making sure my conditioning level is at an all-time high. Like I said, catch and shoot, and being able to do the winning things because, you know, Coach West and the coaching staff has been there, and a lot of us have not. So being able to just implement those rules on both ends of the court to be able to win at a high level.
What does Rob bring to this team that maybe wasn't here last year?
We call some of the guys call him Pawpaw, like Grandpa, because he's just an old head. He carries himself kind of like Kawhi Leonard a little bit. Just one of those guys who just laser focused. Sometimes I call him a robot. He's just an OG. About the right stuff on and off the court. He brings that leadership from both ends of the court, especially on the defensive end. That's something that we for sure need on this team.
How much do the struggles to end last season stay in the back of your mind as you go into the next season?
Oh, it's for sure, but it's motivating because, as Coach said, the great things happen when you got a group of guys that's been through some things together, that's failed together, and we have some guys that's been through some highs together as well and failed together. So it's motivating, and it just means so much more for us to get some things done that we want this year.
Coach talked about you don't have as much height as maybe you did last year with Duel and Hayden gone, but more length, especially on the perimeter. Are you noticing the impact of that, whether it's going against those guys, defending you, or just playing with them?
No, for sure. I'm seeing it in practice, you know, going to my move, and the space is not as much space as it was there last year on the wings. And, you know, and I got John Newman and Rob guarding me, those two of the best defenders in the country. You mix that in with guys like Landers, who 6'7", I think, with like a 7'2" wingspan. You got that across the board. That's very difficult because we can switch a lot of situations and cover ground on a lot of mistakes.
How have you guys embraced the newcomers, not just, you know, off the court, but as you're learning how to all play together and kind of become a cohesive unit?
Well, first of all, it's great because we have a great coaching staff. And second of all, we have the perfect mixture of experience because we very experienced and top-heavy in regards to our top guys. But then you got talent. And when you mix those two with the guys like Dan, Sage, and Josh, who's ultra-talented, some of the best freshmen in the country, those are two recipes. And you got a group of guys that want to learn. Them guys want to learn. Everyone wants to buy in. And when you got that, that's the recipe for success.
So you and Rob are both super seniors. Just talk about how that veteran leadership has been able to transition into that backcourt and this team. Obviously, you guys have been through the highs and lows, as you mentioned. Talk about what it's like to have that leadership in that team.
Yeah, we actually got quite a few super seniors, but I'll keep it towards your question with me and Rob. You know, two guys who have played at the highest of levels, both played against each other in the Big Ten at one point in time. That have been in big moments. And when you got that experience and you got a group of guys that's, you know, listen to those voices. It's powerful and it's motivating for guys like me and Rob to not only instill that experience, but also make sure we're on top of our game and making sure that we leading by example as well.
There's a lot of talk about those games in Maui, but how important are the games leading up to that trip to make sure that you're going into that stretch playing at your best?
Oh, they're very important. As Coach said, each and every game, it might not always can get you to an NCAA tournament, but it can hurt you and hinder you from getting to an NCAA tournament. And also just being able to gel and build that camaraderie going into a big tournament like that is very vital in the success for not only Maui, but for the rest of our season as well.
Anything else for David?
Talk about also, I'd like to announce we having jerseys being sold this year, and 100% of the profits that I'm getting from that will go towards providing books from kids in the inner city of Cincinnati and Detroit. Coming from the inner city of Detroit, I see firsthand that people might not have the proper guidance or the environment that's in place have such a gravitational pull on them that it overweighs the great mentorship that they have at home. But I feel like books is a good place, and it provides discipline, and it builds a hunger of knowledge. And I believe knowledge is the first step of becoming well-rounded people. So I just want people to know who's buying my jersey this year. It'll be more than just buying the jersey of a player you may like. It's going towards something bigger than myself. And I appreciate anyone who take the opportunity to buy my jersey and wear it. So thank you.
Thanks, David.
Hold on, where are we supposed to go second? Were we supposed to go second?
Rob, how do you think the transition has gone so far, and how ready do you feel you are with the season just a couple weeks away?
Transition's been really good from my teammates, from the coaches, from everybody really being here. I feel like everyone's really embraced me, and I feel like just having a lot of older guys really helped. Having the transfers, Dave, John, all those guys, really just embraced me, and I'm really looking forward to the season.
Coach Miller talked about what you can bring to the floor as a point guard. What do you feel like Wes wants out of his point guards out there?
I'd say the main thing is just picking up full court and playing defense. I feel like that's what I'm really good at, and that's the main thing he did. That's the main thing he really recruited me for. So just playing defense and getting everybody in the right positions, leading everybody is the main thing I feel like you really see this year.
David just said that they call you Papa and that you're an old head. You're not that much older than David, I assume. Do you like this? Is that a sign of endearment, do you think?
I say C.J. Anthony is the one who really started that. I would say just because I'm like old, so I'm really laid back. I'm just a laid back guy. But no, I mean, I don't really have a problem with it.
So you're an Indiana kid, went to play at Indiana. Obviously, there's a lot of history tied up in that. Did you know of much of the history of Cincinnati basketball before you came here?
Yeah, I know they've always been good. I mean, growing up, I was a basketball fan, so I always paid attention. And I knew Cincinnati was always good, just seeing like Sean Kilpatrick and all those guys play. So I've always paid attention. I know I had a couple AU tournaments up here when I was younger too, so I'm pretty aware of it.
What was the recruiting process like, and what ultimately led you to Wes Miller in Cincinnati, other than your relationship with Mike Roberts and some of the familiar faces here?
Honestly, it was kind of annoying, just like going back to kind of how high school was, and like just coaches blowing up your phone all day. I didn't really like it, to be honest, but it was good though. Just getting Coach Miller and Coach Roberts down. They came to Lafayette, where I'm from, to meet with me. So that was a big thing, and I know we have a chance to be really good this year. Like I said, we have a lot of guys returning, and then a lot of guys who transferred in. So I feel like we have a really good chance to be good.
How was your relationship with Coach Roberts coming over from Indiana, and how much did that help the process?
Oh, it helped a lot. I mean, just from him being my coach my sophomore, junior year, we always stayed in contact last year. So we've been really close. I mean, we've got really close since I've been here too, just talking about a lot of life things too, whether it's Cincinnati or after basketball too. So I feel like him being just a mentor for me has really helped the transition being a lot more smooth.
Wes said one thing he likes about you is your experience in big moments, hitting big shots and coming up big in the clutch. What is it about those moments that you really love?
I just like to make winning plays. I mean, that's the big thing. I feel like ever since I was young. I mean, you always dream about those moments where they're like you're just in the park and you're just making like you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, shooting a shot or whatever. So I feel like I'm really built for those moments, and I really showed it when I was at IU too.
So you and David go back a little bit. Obviously, when he was at Michigan and you were at Indiana, now you guys combine here at UC. Talk about your relationship a little bit with David and how that transition has been so seamless for you guys.
Oh yeah, even before I even really committed here, I had a conversation with him just about the transition he had from Michigan to Cincinnati and just how different it was the conferences were. So just him being like I want to say, well, obviously he's been one of my peers, not like a big brother to me, but just one guy I could really lean on and ask for advice because I know he's been through it.
What's your approach mindset from scoring as a point guard? You know, Wes said you're not out there like hunting, necessarily looking for points, but you big scorer in high school. You had some big games in Indiana. How do you kind of view that part of your game?
I really just take what comes to me. I don't really try to go out there and force anything. So, I mean, if defense gives me an open three, I'll take it, whether it's getting downhill or creating for my teammates. That's the big thing. But, yeah, I really just take what comes to me and do what I need to do to have my team win.
What has been your impression so far of the fan base and kind of what you've gathered from being on campus here?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty – obviously, it's like he said, it's a storied program, so the fans know who you are right away. I mean, as soon as I got here in the summer, whether I was going out to eat or just being around campus, people really know who I am. So I really like all the fan love and everything that really comes to being a Cincinnati Bearcat. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really it's packed out, everything's sold out, and I really like how it's open to the public so everyone can really just come in and mingle with each other. So that's been, I would say, the biggest difference from the football side.
You talked about Wes valuing defense and that being a strength of yours. Do you like that? Do you like playing defense?
Yeah, for sure. I do, actually. I mean, just growing up, that was always something I was really good at, whether it's anticipating getting steals or just being on the help side and getting guys in the right position. But honestly, I feel like it just comes natural to me. I think I'm really good. I have really good instincts, so defense really comes natural to me.
David, he called you Paw Paw, but he also said you had like a Kawhi Leonard type mentality as far as like your calmness. Is that something that helps you during the game where it's a tough moment where you're just able to be even killed?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, I'm pretty laid back, so I feel like in those moments, it's not pressure. You really practice it. You practice it your whole life doing it, so I don't really look at it as being like having more pressure at those moments. But, yeah, I've never really heard the Kawhi comparison, but I can see it a little bit.
So this backcourt, obviously you have yourself, David, and Michael, all seniors. Just talk about that relationship, and then you guys have a young guy, Dan Skillings. Just talk about that relationship in that backcourt. Obviously, you guys have that 4 to 5 year veteran experience. Just talk about what it's like for you guys.
It's great. I know college basketball is going to be really old in the next couple of years, just with the COVID and everything. So we might be one of the oldest teams in the country, I think. But yeah, just having me, David, and Shuey in the backcourt is really going to be good for us. And then, like you said, having Dan too, I feel like we can really lead him because Dan, I feel like he can be an NBA player with his length, the way he can get to the rim and do everything. So I feel like Dan's going to be really good.